Yes, Nintendo crossovers. Mario crossing over with Luigi. Yeah, this is a bit of an interesting topic, mainly because you'd think there would be more of these out there. The idea of Nintendo crossovers just feels too perfect. I mean, like, these franchises all feel so right together. I mean, you put any two franchises together and it sells itself. But while there are a fair amount of Nintendo crossovers out there, like I said, they just aren't as common as it feels. And I'd say that's probably because Smash Brothers really kind of satiates that lust for crossovers between all these franchises. Here's a game where everybody is together in all of these different Nintendo worlds, all these different characters throughout video game history. It's the biggest crossover, not only possibly in gaming, but in entertainment in general. So it kind of makes it so then, like, you know, how much demand is there really for an Animal Crossing Fire Emblem crossover? But I think it's because of Smash Brothers that all of these franchises feel as close together as they do, even if they often just have absolutely nothing to do with each other. Mario and Zelda oftentimes have references to one another, but it's not like there's ever really going to be this big standalone Mario plus Zelda project out there. And while I wouldn't be against that, I don't really have a huge demand for it, because I feel like Smash Brothers kind of satiates that, even if Smash Brothers is completely non-canon. They get around that in the franchise by having the lore being, oh, these are just toys, action figures, dolls of these famous video game characters. And when you fight against Master Hand is kind of supposed to represent like a kid's hand playing with their toys. I've always thought that was a cute way of making all of this make sense, because as goofy as a lot of Nintendo's franchise lore can be, you can tell they're also pretty damn picky about if characters can appear in other franchises or do certain things. I mean, I remember when Splatoon 1 was coming out, everybody was talking about the potential for a Super Mario Sunshine related crossover event. Like, oh, what if you have Mario as a playable character with the Flood Pack? Or why don't they just have a little reference here or there, or like a little costume you can wear? And they completely decided against that. And that was because they wanted Splatoon to stand on its own. They didn't want to muddy the waters by shoving Mario in there, because they were serious about making Splatoon like a franchise with specific lore and just adding whatever the kind of character you want to it, just because, like, oh yeah, this would be kind of cool. Like, that kind of complicates things. That kind of muddies the waters. So that means you can tell they didn't give a about Codename Steam. You remember this game? Does anybody? Developed by Intelligent Systems, the Fire Emblem guys, and because of that, if you tap Fire Emblem Smash Brothers amiibo, you can just straight up play as certain Fire Emblem characters, which is neat. And I guess Codename Steam isn't really on the same level as Splatoon, as like, oh wow, this is going to be one of Nintendo's great new IPs. To be fair, Codename Steam's entire like concept is about taking like whatever figures from throughout history and putting them together in this game to fight aliens in a strategy RPG. So even though Codename Steam's concept is original, its identity isn't. I mean, it's fucking Lincoln right there, man. So they were probably like, yeah, fuck it, yeah, you can play as the Fire Emblem characters. Who cares? Well, then what the hell was the deal with Mario Kart 8? I mean, like, this features full-blown Nintendo characters playable. Now, the base package of Mario Kart 8 had basically no Nintendo crossover content in it. It was just basic-ass Mario Kart 8. But then you got the paid DLC packs hitting the scene, where Link was playable, Animal Crossing's Villager and Isabelle, you had tracks based on F-Zero, you had a track based on Excite Bike, and the DLC packs themselves were named like, oh, Mario Kart 8 Cross The Legend of Zelda, Mario Kart 8 Cross Animal Crossing. And then when the game hit the Nintendo Switch, they added Inklings from Splatoon, and they also made Urchin Underpass a battle map. Now, this definitely satiated a lot of fan requests. You know, a lot of people have always wanted Mario Kart to turn into like a Smash Brothers type event, where it's literally just all Nintendo themed stuff. So much so that a lot of people were talking about, oh, the Mario Kart after Mario Kart 8, it should be Super Smash Kart. And, you know, we got Mario Kart World instead, which, you know, I gotta be honest, like, I'm not really all about the Super Smash Kart idea. I would accept it wholeheartedly. Like, I would be like, oh yeah, this is cool. This is really fun. But I do feel like Mario Kart is Mario Kart. You know, they dabble with a couple of characters like this in Mario Kart 8, frankly, because, like, it made sense from a marketing perspective, and they damn well needed that during the Wii U era. And you know, these characters make sense. You know, you take a look at these, and these are all internally Nintendo developed characters. These are all characters from series developed internally at Nintendo EPD. So, you know, like I think these characters made sense to include. And even then, like I think from the developer's perspective, these are considered kind of like bonuses. And then when they were porting 8 to the Nintendo Switch, they were probably like, okay, well, we don't want to do brand new tracks right now. So, you know, hey, why don't we just do, you know, a brand new battle mode? And then they thought like, okay, well, you know, since we're including the DLC, these characters are already in the game. So we might as well kind of continue this tradition and just include another Nintendo character. And, you know, hey, we can throw in a battle map. Splatoon makes a bunch of sense. Now, Mario Kart 8 already kind of dabbled in weird bullshit. They did a whole marketing collaboration with Mercedes-Benz where like real life Mercedes-Benz vehicles were added to Mario Kart 8, and they're still in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So I think Nintendo had a bit of a moment of, it. Why the hell not? But I think they were very careful with the Nintendo characters they included in Mario Kart 8 as DLC and as kind of like the little bonus cool extra additions. You know, they could have definitely gone like farther and farther and farther with that, but they didn't. They kept it to just these characters because they obviously consider, like I said, Mario Kart to be Mario Kart. I'm gonna be honest, if you turn Mario Kart into Smash Brothers, that just makes all of these crossovers so less special. Because at that point, like, okay, if you're just gonna turn Mario Kart into a whole Nintendo crossover event, why not turn Mario Tennis into a crossover? Why not turn Mario Golf into a crossover? Why not add whatever character you want to whatever series? So I feel like the developers kind of thought like, okay, that's it. Like, that's all we're doing. Because if they really like the idea of just going full blown into the Nintendo crossover sphere, I'm sure we would have seen brand new crossover content as a part of the 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass DLC. Even though a big element of that DLC was generally them saying like, oh, these tracks and characters are from previous Mario Kart games, even though some tracks were brand new to the series. You know, they could have included Rob, since Rob was a character in Mario Kart DS. That was goofy as hell. Hell, they could have gone for the third-party pick. They could have done Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man or Mamechi from the Mario Kart arcade series. But no, they kept it all to Mario stuff. Of course, a big element of the stuff they added to the DLC was definitely like, oh, was it in Mario Kart Tour? Yes. Okay, great. We can port it over. They probably weren't going to do Rob or Pac-Man because they would have to do completely brand new models for them. But still, whatever. Obviously, Nintendo wasn't super keen on doing a bunch of new Nintendo crossover stuff for Mario Kart. And if they would do it again, I'm sure they're just going to kind of like do it very, very seldom. Because to be honest, like the whole concept of like, oh yeah, that with like a Super Smash card, they're gonna do like Smash Brothers like trailers for all these characters. I'm like, it's not gonna be as special. You think it's gonna be as special as like a Smash Brothers character introduction? It's not. And then for a Nintendo crossover Mario Kart game, like, yeah, the Nintendo maps in this game are really special and really cool. But if all of the tracks in the game are just based on random Nintendo properties, I just feel like that just kind of takes a lot of the creativity out of Mario Kart. It's just gonna turn into like, okay, what's the new Zelda track in this game? What's the new Kirby track? Okay, well, you know, you should probably have a track based on like a legacy Kirby title, and then you should have like a track based on one of the newer ones. And again, I'm not gonna act like I wouldn't like enjoy that. I think that would still be fun, but it's also like, I do think the way Mario Kart is makes the most sense. You know, Mario Kart is Mario Kart. If you want to do like a Nintendo crossover racing game, I think like a couple of characters in Mario Kart every now and then is like fine. But if you're going to go all the way with it, you might as well make a brand new franchise at that point and keep Mario Kart as Mario Kart. Now, Mario playing dodgeball, I don't give a about the purity of that. Yeah, throwing a fucking Moogle. A bit of an interesting era here. A lot of the games that Square Enix developed that Nintendo published here, they kind of did a lot of collaborations. With these ones, it's kind of like, oh, okay, sure. Fortune Street, that makes sense, you know. This is actually a Square Enix IP here. Itagaki Street, you know, it's a long-running Japanese board game, video game-esque setup, similar to Monopoly, but, you know, a little more engaging. First and only time this franchise ever left Japan, and it's actually not the first time they did a crossover with Nintendo characters. They actually did a DS version that, you know, was also only in Japan. But Nintendo actually published this in North America in 2011, primarily because they had absolutely just jack dick releasing during that time. But yeah, what's the point of it being a crossover between Dragon Quest and Mario? You tell me. I have no goddamn idea. I always assumed it was kind of just to give you some iconic characters to play around with. You know, they did an Itagaki Street on the PS4, and that was a crossover between Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy, which was a little easier for Square Enix to do because they own both franchises. But, you know, I think it's just to give you, like, some iconic characters to play the game with. This situation, I think they just did it because they were like, well, Square Enix is developing these games for some reason. Yeah, so Nintendo had like a partnership with Square Enix where they developed 2 Mario sports games on the DS and the Wii. We got Mario Hoops 3-on-3, which includes the Final Fantasy characters, and Mario Sports Mix on the Wii, which does the same goddamn thing. Now, firstly, I have no damn idea why Square Enix is developing your basketball game, but whatever, I'm not gonna complain. I mean, like, these games are okay, and the extra characters included are definitely just kind of like bizarro, just for funsies kind of things, you know? Definitely just because Square Enix happened to develop these games, so they were like, yeah, let's throw in some Final Fantasy stuff. That's kind of fun. You also have the slime from Dragon Quest as a playable character. Both of these games released in 2011. Great year for some weird out there. Now let's talk about something a little less bizarre. Okay, so why am I talking about this one next? Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE. You know, I had a horrible call with this game because, you know, it was June of 2016. You know, I only had enough money for one game at the time. And this was when I was buying a lot of the Wii U stuff getting released at that time because, you know, nobody was. And I just wanted to, you know, collect for the Wii U and experience a lot of the stuff coming out for the Wii U. So I saw, you know, Tokyo Mirage Sessions released on the same day as Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, which, you know, we might as well talk about that one too. But, you know, like, wow, 2 crossovers in one day. I never realized that. And I thought, even though I'm a little baby boy that loves, oh my God, cartoon characters that are super colorful and blue and red and all that crap, I picked this one, even though, you know, I don't play a lot of RPGs. I was just like, you know what? This is going to be the higher quality game, and it's probably going to be hard to find later down the line because, like, who's going to buy this compared to Mario and Sonic? This game became incredibly cheap, and Mario and Sonic ended up being the super expensive game later down the line. God damn it. But I played Tokyo Mirage Sessions, and it's good. It's just a really strange game because it's incredibly bizarre from the moment it got announced to the moment they re-announced it because it was so long before we actually saw anything from this game. It was initially announced in January of 2013 as Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem. Just a flat out crossover between the 2 franchises. That's what it was gonna be. The 2 franchises together. And I guess this is still that. Well, not really as much Shin Megami Tensei. Now, I've asked a couple people who have played this game through to the end, and they said, like, you know, okay, so the crossover makes more sense near the end of the game. I'm gonna take their word for it. I still don't know what happens at the end of this, but it doesn't make it any less bizarre. When this game was fully re-unveiled, I didn't know what the hell I was looking at. This was like in the April 2015 Nintendo Direct. They showed this bizarre trailer where you had this pop music playing, you know, these idol singers in Japan all over the place, and like, you know, it was obviously an RPG from Atlas, which was interesting, you know, like that shows like, oh, this must be a very high quality big release. I just wish I knew what the hell I was looking at. And then after the trailer stopped, Bill Trinen said, like, first of all, thank you for waiting, everybody. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And he was like, and yes, this is in fact indeed the Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem crossover. And I'm like, it is? Yeah, that project practically turned into a brand new IP that incorporated elements from Shin Megami Tensei and Fire Emblem into just this completely new concept. Like, you look at the back here, and it's like the only mention of Fire Emblem is right here. RPG Master Atlas puts their unique spin on Fire Emblem favorites. Okay. And this right here, that's meant to be Chrom from Fire Emblem Awakening. What a weird concept for a game. Like, yeah, it's a crossover, but it doesn't really do a lot of the satisfying elements of a crossover. For the most part, it does its own thing, and it does its own thing fairly well, you know? Like, it's a decent RPG. But to be honest, I don't really know what elements of this game exist that are, like, actually from Shin Megami Tensei, other than, like, yeah, like, it's developed by the same people that make Shin Megami Tensei, and yes, the gameplay is incredibly similar to Shin Megami Tensei. But for the most part, this just seems like a brand new RPG with random Fire Emblem characters thrown in throughout. And who knows, maybe there's something I'm missing here. I've played this game for about like 6 hours or so. I know, that's damn shocking coming from me. Oh my God, I played an RPG for more than 30 minutes? Well, playing an RPG for 6 hours is practically like playing any other game for 30 minutes. So whatever, decent game, weird ass crossover. Now, does Nintendo Land count as a crossover? Because like, yeah, it's a bunch of Nintendo IPs kind of all represented together. But it's not really like, oh yeah, Mario's meeting a Pikmin. I almost consider this to be its very own concept of a franchise, you know? It's kind of just like, oh yeah, it's a theme park based on Nintendo's worlds. Yes, you're playing a game where everything's Mario themed, but it's not like you're actually going to the Mushroom Kingdom. Everything in Nintendo Land is meant to look kind of crappy, like it's like this DIY stitched together version of Nintendo IPs, and you playing as Mii's is meant to be like, oh, you're going to a virtual Nintendo theme park. So at that point, real life is like a Nintendo crossover. Like, oh man, look at my room. A Pikmin game's over there. Oh, an Animal Crossing game's over there. It's like, sure, we can consider stuff like NES Remix or Nintendo World Championships NES Edition to be a crossover, but again, like, I kind of like it to stick to like, oh man, characters are meeting for the first time ever. And of course, I think these games kind of satisfy that little urge we all have. The Mario and Sonic series. Easily one of the coolest video game concepts to ever see the light of day. Too bad they went to the fucking Olympics. Okay, to be honest, like, I was so into this idea back in the day. Now, you know, I wasn't, you know, following video game news at the time in 2007 when this game got announced, but I recall hearing that the original Mario and Sonic on Wii, this was announced around April Fool's Day, so that definitely gave a lot of people trust issues. But no, it was real. Sega publishes this game because Sega actually had the rights to the Olympics branding. You know, they actually did their very own, like, standard Olympics video games for a bit there. And Sega actually developed these games as well. So Nintendo just kind of licensed Mario to appear in these games. I think the actual concept for like why these games came out was because, you know, Sega had the license to the Olympics, and the Olympics wanted to like bring in kids. They wanted to interest kids. So, you know, hey, why not? Let's bring Mario and Sonic together for the first time ever. And hey, like, they have always been competitive rivals throughout video game history. So let's bring them together for the first time to really hammer in the friendly competitive spirit alive and well within the Olympics. These games are incredibly mediocre. I got this game in one of those scholastic book catalogs. You know, those things that you would get in school, you would flip through and then you'd like say like, oh, I want that book. Oh, I want that book. And you know, you beg your mom, you're like, hey, can I please get this? Can I please get that? You know, she'd give you a check and then, you know, you bring it back to school, and then eventually like weeks later, they'd finally bring in what you ordered. But here's the thing, they would always have like a page of a couple of video games, and Mario and Sonic was one of the games. And man, I weaseled my way into convincing my mom to buy this for me, and I was so excited. I remember getting this in school and just running home and just like playing it immediately. And I had my fun with Mario and Sonic, the first one on the Wii. You know, like I enjoyed it to an extent. But man, it's just one of those concepts that's like really awesome. And then you play it, and even if you have a good time with it, it's never gonna live up to just like the absolute amazing idea that's in your head surrounding the concept of like a Mario and Sonic crossover. My biggest problem with this game is that it's very, very generic. It is basically just a collection of motion control based mini games. Some of them are pretty okay. A lot of them are incredibly boring. They last for like 20 seconds, but there's so much fluff between them all. Like this whole rigmarole of like, oh yeah, announcing your character, getting ready for the game, seeing the results, you know, like it's like the actual Olympics, but the actual games are pretty shallow. There's a couple of winners, and they do some interesting things like the dream events where it is a little more like what you'd expect from a Mario or Sonic like party game. And they actually expand upon that stuff with the follow-ups on the Wii, Olympic Winter Games and London 2012 Olympic Games. These games are so much better quality than the first one. They look a lot better, they sound a lot better. The music in these games is phenomenal. They have so many great remixes from both series, and they actually do a hell of a lot more with the concept of dream events. Oh man, you know, you have your standard like Olympics games here, but you also have a fair amount of really interesting takes on Olympic sports, but in kind of the world of Mario, in the world of Sonic. There's a lot more going on here than in the first game. And unfortunately, I would say these two games are the peak of the franchise. These games suck ass. This one is just a far worse Olympic Winter Games on Wii. And then this one doesn't have any dream events. It was obviously just like a rushed cheapo job. And then the Switch one is better, but I would kind of put it in line with the first Mario and Sonic on Wii, where it's just like, it's okay, I guess. You have the handheld games on DS and 3DS. Who cares about those? There were actually like Mario and Sonic Rio 2016 and Tokyo 2020 in the arcades. I played Tokyo 2020 at like Dave & Buster's. And while all these games are like, you know, different from each other, like it's all the same kind of crap, man. Like here's a mini game based on the Olympics. There you go. And the series is dead as f now. The Olympics isn't interested in video games like this anymore. Which, you know, yeah, sure, why not? And then you see why they aren't. Listen, man, I didn't really care about the Mario and Sonic series, but like, don't do that to it. At the very least, I think Mario and Sonic was always kind of a neat little thing. You know, even if I knew the games were never going to be like anything outstanding, even though those two Wii games were genuinely pretty damn good minigame collections, you know, it was always kind of a cute little thing that was still going on. And now it's no more. Maybe someday we'll see it again, who knows? But for the time being, thank you so much, Mario and Sonic, for wasting the concept of a Mario and Sonic crossover. To be fair, there's been a couple other instances. In Sonic Lost World, they did free DLC where there was a Yoshi's Island theme stage, and there was also a Zelda theme stage. Of course, there's Super Smash Brothers. Like, that's a massive thing when Sonic was revealed for that. It's really strange that Sonic was not planned to be there from the start, and Snake was gonna be the only third-party character in Smash Brothers Brawl. That's strange as f. But hey, Sonic made it in. That's cool. But the fact we haven't gotten like a more traditional Mario and Sonic crossover game is pretty wild when you consider the fact we got these. Okay, so the Rabbids warrant like a AAA strategy RPG crossover event getting put out. Why the f is it good? Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle was initially rumored in late 2016. I believe the original rumors kind of like pitched it as kind of like, oh, it's like Super Mario RPG 2 with the Rabbids, which that's not what this game is at all. There's really no other Mario game like it, you know? It's very XCOM-like, a tactical RPG. But the concept alone was just not really easy to sell anybody on. But months went on, and like eventually this whole thing leaked. Like the full-blown like key art, all of that stuff. But I honestly think this game needed to leak, because when Ubisoft eventually unveiled it at E3 2017, I think it got to the point that like everybody kind of warmed up to the idea. You know, back when it was initially rumored in late 2016, like this thing would have been eaten alive if it was just like revealed out of nowhere. But the reveal showcased that this is an actual honest-to-God video game. It isn't just some mini-game collection. It isn't a party game. It isn't just, oh, combining Mario and Rabbids for the hell of it. Well, it kind of is. I find that this crossover is kind of in line with, like, why Final Fantasy characters are in Mario Sports Mix. Well, because the developer that owns the franchise developed it. Do Mario and the Rabbids need to cross over? I would say no. I don't hate the Rabbids or anything, but I just find it interesting that, oh, this big crossover between Mario and the Rabbids is within a game genre that neither one of them are famous for. It's just kind of strange. Like, it honestly would have made more sense if this was a party game, because that's what the Rabbids are known for. But, you know, I am very thankful that this game is the way it is, because it genuinely is a very very well done turn-based tactical RPG. It's honestly really addictive, and the whole game is just so well polished. It's just so smooth. The animation is so great. And honestly, like, while people were really annoyed by the Rabbids before, this game kind of showcases them in a very charming light. You know, like, they are very fun to watch in this game. You can tell the development team really cared about this, and they really cared about making like a very good game. And the same is true with Sparks of Hope, though I didn't really get as into Sparks of Hope. You know, this kept a lot of my attention because, like, oh wow, you're going through kind of the Mushroom Kingdom and it's infested with rabbit bullshit. Sparks of Hope is a much more original concept. Like, you're not really going through Mario worlds as much. You know, it feels much more original. Like, oh, you're going to all these brand new worlds and whatnot. And I respect that, but it did make it a lot less engaging for me. And they revamped the gameplay a ton. Like, this almost plays entirely differently. They got rid of the whole grid setup. Like, you just move around freely. It's definitely a really good game, but I'd probably say Kingdom Battle is the way to go first time around. This is still really good, but I think this is a little more like immediately accessible and engaging. I almost feel like they made this game a little more original to kind of like open up the possibility to just make this like a Rabbids exclusive franchise. You know, like, hey, let's make just a Rabbids turn-based tactics game. Oh, we don't need to rely on Mario anymore. We can just make Rabbids games that play just like this in the future. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, like, really good set of games right here. Still weird as hell crossovers. That's the thing, man. I think as fans, we kind of look at like, oh, when Nintendo does crossovers that, oh, this franchise that they're crossing over with needs to have that prestige to it. Like, oh man, Nintendo just can't cross over with any franchise. And I don't think Nintendo views it like that. I think they just kind of view it as like, if an opportunity arises, they consider it, and then they're like, yeah, sure, go for it. I mean, look at this, Cadence of Hyrule, an indie game crossover with Zelda. You know, this just came about because the developers went to Nintendo and were like, can we pretty please do like a Zelda crossover in just like a small little DLC pack for the original Crypt of the Necrodancer? And then Nintendo was like, why don't you just make a full ass game? And it's just like, they don't like, they're open to stuff, man. I feel like more people should probably ask Nintendo to do stuff, because I think they might be surprised at what their answer is. Yes, they're famously known for rejecting all kinds of things, but like, yeah, it just shows that like, they were open to this, and it's just like, who knows what else they're open to? Well, that got me thinking of a bunch of the other Zelda crossover projects. You know, Link's Awakening is the one my mind immediately went to. This is just one weird-ass game with a bunch of random junk thrown into it, where it's, you know, it's pretty similar to something like A Link to the Past. But because this game, spoiler alert, Link's Awakened? Oh, wow, he's sleeping? Oh, yeah, it's a fucking dream. I feel like they use that as an excuse to just jam a bunch of stuff in this game. I mean, you have Mario stuff here, you have Goombas in this game, and then you have a picture of Princess Peach. You have the guy from SimCity on Super Nintendo. You have Wart from Super Mario Brothers 2. You have Kirby. You just have all this stuff that's just kind of appearing in the game. And some of it is like, oh, it just kind of looks like that. And some of it is just flat out like, no. Like, in Link's Awakening, when you fight a Kirby enemy, it is, like, the enemy's name is called Anti-Kirby. Like, there's literally a pet chain shop in the game. There's a Yoshi doll you can get. There's so much stuff in Link's Awakening that's just, like, pulled from all different facets of Nintendo. It's really interesting because I assume the core reason for that is because this game takes place within a dream world, so, you know, they kind of do things that possibly even makes the player themselves, like, feel kind of, like, weird, like, what is all of this doing here? But I think what makes it work in Link's Awakening is the fact that they don't really like pay attention to it. Like, in this world, these things are just kind of like random little cameos that aren't meant to be like, oh wow, Warp from Mario 2 is crossing over with Zelda. Like, no, it's just kind of like, if you know cameos, and if you know, it's just kind of bizarre. And I think it really fits with the whole dream aesthetic of the game. And then we also have Hyrule Warriors, which is often considered a crossover. Like, this is a crossover between Dynasty Warriors and The Legend of Zelda. But it's kind of like how Tokyo Mirage Sessions is like, it takes Shin Megami Tensei gameplay, but that's about it. And it just takes Fire Emblem and puts that in there. where Hyrule Warriors takes Dynasty Warriors gameplay, but that's it. It creates a Legend of Zelda spin-off out of that. It's not like, oh man, Dynasty Warriors characters and Zelda characters are finally meeting. Finally. But Hyrule Warriors eventually kind of became its own thing. In fact, a lot of Warriors games came from this. You have Fire Emblem Warriors as well, and that follows pretty much the exact same idea as this. Let's take the core concept of a Dynasty Warriors game, and let's take another franchise and theme an entire game around this gameplay concept. And some people absolutely love it, and other people are bored shitless from Warriors games. I like them from time to time, you know. They are definitely very mindless games, but, you know, when I'm in the right mood, they're a good time. And this is a funny one. This is Tingle's Balloon Fight. This was a Japanese Club Nintendo reward. It's Balloon Fight, but with Tingle. Yeah, the box art is even taking like the Famicom box art of Balloon Fight and just like pasting Tingle on top of it. So yeah, what the hell was I saying earlier about Nintendo not doing crossovers very often? Yeah, this spits in the face of that. We have a couple of strange guys here. Now this one isn't actually any Nintendo characters here, but for a while there, like I always considered Professor Layton like a pseudo Nintendo character. You know, Nintendo published the majority of Layton games on the DS and 3DS, and Nintendo actually published this crossover right here between Professor Layton and Phoenix Wright. But then we also have Puzzle and Dragon Z plus Puzzle and Dragon Super Mario Bros. Edition. Oh boy, a crossover between Puzzle and Dragons and Mario. Wow, that's everything I always wanted. You know, strangely enough, I always see like on bootleg things, like you ever see like possibly at like a mall kiosk or like at a carnival or something, they'll use like images of Mario and stuff without Nintendo's permission. They'll just put it somewhere like oh man, they'll do like a beanbag toss or something. They'll just put a giant picture of Mario on like a standee and be like, oh, fun stuff for kids. Oftentimes on like bootleg things, they'll use this image of Mario with this egg creature from Puzzle and Dragons. I don't know. You know, I do find it interesting that, you know, here in North America, they released Puzzle and Dragons Z as a combo pack. In Japan, these were both separate games, but here in North America, they bundled them, part of this like little value pack. I don't even think they needed to do that. Genuinely, anybody that's actually played this game, I don't think anybody has ever even thought about clicking on Puzzle and Dragon Z. Everybody just goes to Mario, so I feel like they could have literally just released this as Puzzle and Dragons Mario Edition, and that's it. This right here is one of the more infamous Nintendo crossovers. It's Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix, but, you know, similar to something like Hyrule Warriors. This, you know, I mean, like, there isn't really much about Dance Dance Revolution other than the core gameplay that this is crossing over with. Now, it's kind of similar to Pokken Tournament. You know, this can be considered a crossover with Tekken, even though this is kind of like just its own thing. So much so to the point that, like, I really don't think they should even call this Pokken. Like, they're obviously doing this because it's like, oh, it's a pun. You're combining the two things. But it's just like, yeah, this has similarities to Tekken, but like this is genuinely its own game. Now, Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix? Nah, I mean, like, this is just straight up Dance Dance Revolution, but with Mario. It's a very novel concept. I do like this game to an extent, but it's also like, it has a big problem that like Wii Music has, where like the song selection is just ass. You definitely got some cool like Mario remixes in there, some deep cuts. You know, you have like music from like Yoshi's Cookie, you have Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. You got some cool stuff in this game, but there's only like 29 tracks, and a couple of them are just like, you got some Twinkle Twinkle Little Star ass tracks in here. Like, it's just something where it's just like, come on, you could have gone so far with this, and they do a decent amount with it, but it's still kind of like, you know, it could have been so much more. And I just think it's crazy that this is the only DDR game on the GameCube. They pumped out so many DDR games during this generation, but this was the only one they could put out on the GameCube? Why? I think that's embarrassing that the only way you could get a Dance Dance Revolution on GameCube, they had to make it a Mario edition. Like, come on, guys. Well, that's just what Nintendo has to do sometimes, you know? They have to kind of butter up third parties by offering some little cameos they can do with their characters. I mean, EA Sports made a deal with Nintendo where 3 of the games they put out on GameCube featured Nintendo characters. You had Fight Night Round 2, where you had Little Mac from Super Punch-Out. Not the version of Little Mac we all know from like NES Punch-Out or Punch-Out on Wii and the character design that eventually made it to Smash Brothers. No, the one from Super Punch-Out. This fucking dweeb. And you had SSX on Tour and NBA Street V3, and you had Mario characters in those games. That's funny. You had Soul Calibur 2 with Link. That's like one of the most famous examples of a Nintendo character in a third-party game. And that actually made the GameCube version sell the best out of all the other versions, you know, the PS2 and Xbox versions. But then Sony paid for exclusivity rights for Soul Calibur 3, and that was just only on PS2. So it's just like, well, that ended up not mattering. You had Samurai Warriors 3 on the Wii that actually featured Takamaru from the mysterious Murasame Castle, the Famicom exclusive game that was like this legendary Nintendo-made game, you know? It was kind of in the same field as like Kid Icarus, where it's just like, okay, you have your big boy IPs like Zelda and Metroid. Those went on to do wonderful things. But then Kid Icarus was kind of this game that just kind of was there on NES and, you know, got a sequel on Game Boy. That was it. Mysterious Murasame Castle was kind of in a similar boat where it's like it got its game on Famicom, never left Japan, but it always kind of had this aura about it, and Nintendo would consistently reference it, much like Kid Icarus. But then they did this full-blown crossover with Samurai Warriors 3 on the Wii. You know, like this game was even published by Nintendo, and they have this whole mode that's called like the Mysterious Murasame Castle mode, and Takamaru is a playable character. It's wild how much they go deep with this, and like this game fully released in English in North America, and all this stuff is still there. And like at this time, we've never even heard of this game before. It really wasn't until Nintendo Land when that game had a reference to the Mysterious Murasame Castle that I even learned anything about this IP. And then eventually they actually put it out on the 3DS Virtual Console, and it's on the Nintendo Switch NES Classics app. But still, it's like, Jesus Christ, this is a lot of crap for a game that like maybe 5 people who speak English have ever heard about? Pokemon Conquest is a crossover between Pokemon and Nobunaga's Ambition. Why? Wario Blast crosses over Bomberman with guess fucking who? The third Starfy game, which was a Japan-only series until one game made it out on the DS in North America, the legendary Starfy, but the third one on GBA has a crossover with Wario. Okay. Then Project Cross Zone is this insane crossover between Capcom, Namco, and Sega IPs. But, you know, like, Nintendo has nothing to do with it. Until the second game, where you just have random shit from Fire Emblem and Xenoblade appear. Oh my god, and that's not even scratching the surface. Okay, maybe Nintendo does do a lot of crossovers. You just don't see a ton of, like, oh, this franchise meets this franchise, and that's the whole concept of the game. In terms of cameos or little things where, like, oh, this one character is a special little inclusion in this one game, there's a ton of them out there. Just not a lot of stuff like, let's say, like Mario and Sonic, you know? I remember back in like 2012, before E3, there was a rumor floating around about this Metroid and Star Fox crossover. And, yeah, that was fake. But it kind of made sense because these are two somewhat neglected Nintendo IPs. And it's just like, oh, wow, well, we could just get this all over with. We could just put them both together. And then, boom, we only have to pay for one game. And both Metroid and Star Fox fans are happy. But the thing with crossovers is you can't overdo them. That's something that I think a lot of fans need to know. Like, yes, it would be cool if every franchise was kind of like Smash Brothers, especially stuff like, you know, like, oh, easy to play party games. If Mario Party had Link in it, you know, like that would be kind of cool. But then that would make every other time Link appears in something that isn't Zelda just not feel as special. Something like Cadence of Hyrule is special because, like, this doesn't happen all the time. If it did, why would anybody give a fuck about this game? Other than the fact it's pretty damn good. So I think it's totally fine to want crossovers, but I think the way Nintendo does it is perfectly fine. Sometimes it's cool to combine two franchises, but I mean, they really gotta make sense to combine. And even if they do, it still could suck ass. Oh yeah, this one is a little rough. Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. It's not a bad game at all, but I think this project is the definition of missed potential. You could have made this a celebration of both Mario RPG series. Hell, Mario RPGs in general, they could have like incorporated other elements from like, oh, let's say the original Super Mario RPG, even though Square Enix does own, you know, like the rights to the original characters from that game. I think like referencing elements from it would have been really neat. But instead, this is just a super generic Mario and Luigi game with Paper Mario as a third character tagging along. There's really not a lot of fan service in this game, and that's that is damn near unacceptable. That's the thing, man. As cool as crossovers can be, there's something inherently kind of cheap feeling about them. Like, they can be so damn tacky, and it can just feel like not a legitimate entry in either franchise that you're crossing over with. It just kind of feels like a lot of fan service. So if you're gonna do it, you gotta go hard on the fan service. And Mario & Luigi Paper Jam just barely does anything with this concept. Now, this released around the time that the Mario franchise got really, really generic. Like, they just didn't want to do anything too out there with any of the spin-off entries. Pretty much all of these RPGs had to adhere to the general aesthetics of like a new Super Mario Brothers game, which is what Paper Mario Sticker Star did on the 3DS. And Mario & Luigi Dream Team didn't do that, and that released after Paper Mario. But then this Paper Jam got the memo. Yeah, it's just really generic. Again, it's not a bad game, but it gets to a point that, like, even if it's not a bad game, with how generic this game feels and how much this is just kind of just a nothing experience, like nothing really interesting happens in it, why the hell are you even playing this? Which is a shame, because like I said, this concept has so much potential. It's combining two kind of niche things together, like, oh my god, this Mario RPG and this Mario RPG, and the title is fucking amazing. Like, let's not kid ourselves about this. This may be one of the greatest titles in all of gaming. Well, second only to the European title for this. God, I love this title. So yes, Nintendo crossovers. They can't all be Smash Brothers. Well, that's probably because they haven't combined the right two franchises yet. Oh my god, could you imagine if these two met?